All right, hello, friends, and welcome back to the Gaming Dad Fujo podcast. This is episode number 31, being recorded on September 12th, 2024. Our podcasts are uploaded every other Friday, except for that 1 week, but we don't talk about it. I am Fujosovich, your host, former professional Hearthstone player, currently working as a chemist. This is a place where we talk about all the things that we used to on all of our live streams, and we get posted onto our daily YouTube videos. And instead of interrupting all of our great chat with gameplay of like, oh my goodness, I better top deck a flame strike, I gotta clear the, how are we gonna recover if we don't? We're gonna interrupt ourselves with other topics, like we also used to do on all of our live streams. And on this episode, we will be talking about, at the very least, PlayStation 5 Pro being announced. Ooh, it's exciting and expensive. House of the Dragon Season 2 and George R.R. Martin's comments about it. He's a fan. And James Earl Jones, rest in peace. All of those topics and so many more. Let's get started. He's got no time to play video games. He's the gaming dad, Fujo. Nailed it. All right, and as we always like to do, a little bit of housekeeping. If you're listening, watching on the YouTubes, hit the like button. Give us the thumbs up. Hit the bell, the subscribe button, so you get notifications if you're listening in the podcast universe. Hit us with that 5 out of 5. Leave a comment. Always, we're looking for more Gaming Dad gaming suggestions. It's been kind of light around here in terms of gaming, to be perfectly honest. Doing a little bit more Brawl Stars. Hearthstone has almost completely fallen to the wayside, and that's okay. These things happen. I'm gonna play a couple games of Hearthstone a week. I'm not gonna be able to do anything on the ladder that way. A couple games of Battlegrounds a week. Maybe I'll figure out the meta before there's another shakeup, which I think there just was a week or two ago, probably since the last time we talked. So there hasn't been a lot of that. Pokemon Go, again, a lot of mobile stuff because that's what we have for Gaming Dad hours. Pokemon Go, they had Dynamax Pokemon come out, so that's kind of cool, but I haven't been walking around and doing anything. And I got a new job, and at the new job, there's no Pokestops around, so it's kind of a challenge, to be perfectly honest. And that's okay. Maybe we'll get back into Poke Rogue. We haven't done Poke Rogue. I know there's been a lot of updates. So maybe we'll get back into that, but we're always looking for suggestions. Leave some comments down below. Will we play Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom in a couple weeks? Probably not. We'll probably wait till the new year, till the Switch Next comes out. That we'll make that prediction right now. We're going to start off with that Fujo prediction. The next console in the Nintendo library, the Nintendo lineup will be announced. I'm saying this month, end of September. I guess almost mid-September now. Late September, maybe early October. I was predicting September. We're gonna stick with September for the next Switch console to be announced. Let's get into our first topic of today. Concord shut down. We've talked about this a few episodes now. This is a Sony PlayStation launch, and they are shutting down the servers. What's their official quote? We've been listening to the feedback, and we want to thank everyone who's joined this journey. Many of the qualities people have experienced are going to recognize other aspects. They didn't land the way we intended. Therefore, the game's going offline September 6th, meaning by the time you listen to this, it's already offline. It's going to have been online for 2 weeks. New purchases were immediately disabled on September 3rd, full refunds on the 6th. So this isn't the shortest game of all time. The culling lasted 8 days. The day before was 3 days. But the day before, everyone knew was a scam. Okay? So it's not quite the same thing, right? This is, Concord did very well, though, and it's probably like the highest budgeted speedrunning of shutting down its own servers, which is impressive. Again, we've talked about this. Why would you do a $40 mediocre game in an oversaturated market where all the competition is free to play? Like, how can you possibly compete, right? Like, if I can just play Overwatch for free, I can play Fortnite for free, and then I'm going to jump into your $40 game that's not as good. What are we doing here, right? If it was free to play, would that have saved it? No, but it probably would have given them some time to do this. What happened here? The state of the play. 2 million people watched when they did this first like reveal in the state of the play, and then they let it come out, and 99.95% said no. It was actually interesting though, because those last couple days of the server, they announced it on the 3rd, shut down the 6th. People were trying to speedrun to get some of the trophies, because that's a big thing. People love their trophy hunting, achievement hunting, and stuff. So that's kind of a little cool story. People were trying to speedrun a lot of like online multiplayer stuff, challenges and stuff, to get it all done while they could. And let's jump into another Sony PlayStation little news story. PlayStation 5 Pro was announced, costing a whopping $700 US. Vertical stand sold separately, disc player sold separately. That's right. It's an upgrade that can't play your existing games, digital only, and we know that is gross. And only tiny, moderate improvements for existing games. These games are only a couple years old. Like, it's not like you're, it's awful. And you think like, well, who is this possibly targeted at? Well, a former Blizzard boss pushed back publicly saying, well, look, this $700 is really more of a $350 upgrade because this is aimed at people who can trade in their PS5s at places like GameStop. Like, what a surprise that there's a CEO executive completely out of touch with the average person for these things, right? And it's just, and again, not to mention, like, it's like these stores don't even exist everywhere all the time anymore. Like, yeah, this person living in a big city, yeah, they're going to have access, but, and then also, like, sure, if everyone comes in with their PS5s, that's going to crash the trade-in price. Even though admittedly right now the trade-in price for PS5s is very good, you can probably get pretty close to that $350, but still not everyone's going to be able to. Well, it's not the first time that, PlayStation's had big announcements. Their PS3 was $500 with a 20 gigabyte hard drive. However, then, at least the thing was that was one of the cheaper Blu-ray players that you could have at the time, right? And a lot of people did buy the PlayStation 3 because it had a Blu-ray. It was a Blu-ray player and a really good one as well. Another great move here by ex-Sony president reportedly saying that the gaming industry layoffs are not a result. How's that a hard word to read? Of corporate greed, and those affected should, quote unquote, add Uber. And then he goes on to add, well, that's life. Again, completely out of touch. And then execs complain about people have no loyalty. They're only looking out for themselves. We have to. These execs make too much money. They're disconnected from reality of costs and bills and being concerned about making payments and doing stuff and having your family be able to take trips and do just basic stuff. And everyone else is just working a regular job trying to survive. And they make ridiculous comments like this, and you wonder why no one wants to listen to that. Speaking of layoffs, Microsoft just laid off 600, but I mean a couple hours ago from the time I'm recording this, 650 Xbox employees were laid off. And that's awful to see, obviously. We always hate seeing people lose their jobs. I mean, the joke right now is like it's a race to the bottom between, Microsoft and Sony to who can look worse. But this is likely coming because Microsoft has been acquiring a lot of different gaming studios lately. And it's a lot of these like quote unquote like corporate supporting functions. A lot of like middle management sort of thing that probably becomes redundant when you hire merge multiple companies. The problem is sometimes those redundancies in the acquisitions are actually what helped, one company be so good that they were bought out, if that makes sense. Right? Like, because you have company A buying out company B, but company B was efficient because there were these middle managers who were helping move things, but you're gonna hope that hopefully Microsoft took their time, understand sometimes you keep people from the company you acquire, sometimes you don't. I've been through a couple of these where you see like there's just people who are going to get cut because there's already people doing the job. It's never a fun thing. It's always people walk on eggshells for a little bit at first, and then in my experience, I've had actually pretty good experiences where it's worked out very professionally and people work hard up until their last days and they're given a bit of working notice so you have time to find the next job and all that. I think I've been lucky to at least see that. Luckily, we're going to knock on my hard head. Haven't had to go through it myself yet. I'm still young enough. There's time. But yeah, it's never a fun thing. Always walking on a little bit. Maybe we should talk about that one. Maybe we should get into that topic a little bit more another time. Not right for right now. What else has happened since the last time we talked about Minecraft? We would have talked the heck out of this movie on stream. Minecraft movie trailer just dropped, and it looks awful. It's horrible. Let's see. It's a game. It's based on a game with little to no story. And there's a lot of forced humor. There's a bunch of big name actors that don't really fit. It just looks horrible. Jack Black is kind of just Jack Black. Even though he's supposed to be playing the character of Steve. Jason Momoa somehow looked completely out of place. It's why? I know the Mario movie did well. There's gonna be a lot more of these. Who's the next? Fortnite, call it Mario Party the movie. There were rumors of a Legend of Zelda. They're gonna have like the Nintendo verse universe. It is surprising they haven't done a Call of Duty because you could basically, there's lots of war movies, very accurate war movies. You could have a really gritty action movie and actually make it good. The Lego movies had a lot of charm. they've been good, right? It had a good script. And obviously it's impossible to judge what the heck Minecraft is doing, but it's just first glance, it does not have the charm that Minecraft did. Let's move on to, we have to talk about Linkin Park. I don't even want to talk about this. Like, after having gone through it for the past week, five days, I think, 6 days, 7 days since the announcement, 5 days since the responses, Linkin Park, they announced a lead singer, and they're going to get back together. That's cool. They're going on tour. Really good to hear. They're going to record new music. Excellent. The new singer is a lady named Emily Armstrong. Never heard of her. That's great. I think it's cool. Let's get a female voice. That's going to be very different, because it's going to be different without Chester Bennington there. So let's go very different voice. Let's spend 8 seconds on the internet to learn a little bit more about her, because I've never heard of her. Let's see. Okay, well, she's played in some other bands. I've never heard of those bands. They seem like they're somewhat popular, and you listen to her music quickly. Seems like she can kind of maybe not keep up with Chester, but do a good rendition. What else? Let's see what else we can learn about her. Oh no. Then we go down the horrible rabbit hole. She's a Scientologist, not good. And accused of defending convicted rapist Danny Masterson. Awful. Especially when Chester Bennington very publicly struggled with his mental health challenges, ended up taking his own life. And you have Scientology that does not believe that mental health is a real thing. Mental challenges are a real thing. That's a horrible look. Defending Danny Masterson is a bad look on the surface. And then you have the added layer that Chester was also open about his sexual assault that he survived when he was younger. And it's just all around absolutely awful, awful, awful. And it's just, Linkin Park was this incredible band growing up, and you're like, they're so cool, and look at this great stuff, and people bonded with obviously with Chester, who's very open about a lot of his challenges, and now it's just taking this horrible extra turn. Chester's son has spoken out against Mike Shinoda, replacing his dad, destroying his legacy. The day after that post, he took the post down, saying Linkin Park fans are sending death threats. It seems like Chester's son might be also suffering from some pretty serious mental health issues. So all I can hope is that he gets the help he needs and deserves. And sending death, that's you never do that. We've talked about this in other cases, and that's the worst. Never ever. Emily did make a statement saying she wanted to support. Now this is the thing. She did use the wording. She was asked to go support someone she thought was a friend. That sounds Scientology-ish. Never spoke with him again. And she does not condone violence against women. That's a pretty simple PR statement, with the slipping the word was asked to go support instead of I wanted to go support my friend. So that was interesting, because apparently Scientology will tell you what to do. And here's the thing, and there's no addressing of the Scientology of it all. And we just look, you have to take her at her word and hope that she isn't a horrible person. It's an awful situation. And the one thing we do know for sure is that almost all of the concerts that Linkin Park have scheduled since this announcement about a week ago, almost all of them have sold out. I think there's enough fans, enough love for that band that it might just, they're not going to not sell out their tickets, not going to not sell out their concerts. We'll follow this and see what happens. It's like I said, I didn't really want to get into it, but we kind of still ran through it quickly. There's a couple other points. We're gonna move on from it. We're gonna move on from that topic to House of the Dragon season 2. Everybody watched that one, right? We haven't, but that's okay. So there's gonna be some spoilers from season 2 in here. I spoiled stuff for myself. I don't even mind. I heard it wasn't that great. However, we're going to get into that. So George R.R. Martin posted on his blog. He wrote a really long blog post instead of writing another chapter of the books that he still hasn't released. But that's fine. I don't think he's... We talked about it. I don't have the Game of Thrones, hatred that some people do. I don't think he's ever going to... Or the books are going to be done. He won't release them until, part of his will is going to be oh yeah, the books are done. Press print at the publisher, right? I think that's probably how he's going to... He doesn't want to deal with this. So... on his blog post, let's get into this blog post about season 2. That was just my disclaimer about George R. R. Martin and Game of Thrones in general. I always have this. I'm I'm not angry. I enjoyed the show overall. I enjoyed House of Dragon season 1. It was actually really rough to watch. Some of the stuff, some of the scenes. Haven't had time for season 2. So in the blog post, George R. R. Martin says, "I have no idea what Ryan has planned, if indeed he has planned anything." End quote. Another excellent excerpt here is, and there are larger and more toxic butterflies to come, is if House of the Dragon goes ahead with some of the changes being contemplated for season 3 and 4, basically threatening that like he's going to reveal more stuff if they're planning on doing that. Then he goes into some detail about how there are certain characters missing and why the characters wasn't a big deal, except now it changes out the way that they did play out certain scenes. What is it? Blood and Cheese, I believe, was the episode. If you've seen it, you'll know what I'm talking about. And the problem is now there are certain events in season 3 and 4 which will be affected by some of these previous choices. That George R. R. Martin's like, well, how are you going to do stuff later because of the way you've set it up now? And it seems like the reviews are basically for this show are very divided. There's people who have read the book being basically disappointed, and people who have not read the book who are still pretty impressed. Feel it's emotional pull of a season, right? Now, a few hours after George R. R. Martin made this post, he took it down. The speculation, obviously, where you want to go with this is like, well, he's probably signed a bunch of NDAs with HBO, and they might have reminded him politely, said, hey, remember these NDAs? You kind of revealed a bunch of stuff about, inner workings of our show and about season 3 and 4. Then HBO puts out their PR response a day later. I didn't give you the dates. It was last week. Sorry. It was on like the 4th or 5th or something like that. Sorry about that. I usually have dates when I talk about these things. That's fine. HBO's response. There are few greater fans of George R. R. Martin and his book Fire and Blood than the creative team on House of Dragon, both in production and at HBO. Commonly, when adapting a book for the screen, with its own format and limitations, the showrunner ultimately is required to make difficult choices about characters and stories the audience will follow. We believe in Ryan Condal. Ryan is the original, one of the showrunners that George R. R. Martin called out. I should have said that at the beginning. I'm slipping. And the team has done an extraordinary job, and the millions of fans the series has amassed over the first 2 seasons will continue to enjoy it. End quote. So, season 3 press tour is going to be fun. Now, apparently, so Ryan, they're claiming that Ryan's a big fan of the book. Now, apparently, there are a couple of the other showrunners have admitted to not having read the book, which is just so ridiculous. And we talk about this all the time with these adaptations, right? Apparently, the same thing happened with Halo, with that adaptation, which I've never watched. Was worse with The Witcher, where they admittedly they know the stories, but they just don't like them. They just wanted the IP. And this is very much a PR damage control for dummies reaction. It's expected, right? It's what you do. There's not a lot of options. It becomes messy, but the thing is, like, so wait, let's add one more point actually. So George R. R. Martin has a developmental deal with HBO that ends in March 2026. Now that is not the rights to his work. That apparently has basically been locked up forever. But this is his consultation and his input. He's not in charge of the shows, but he consults. And again, also, let's take a quick second. How do you think those renegotiations for his extension are going to go at this point? It's just like, if you have George R. R. Martin on a consulting deal, consult with him. Plan out, be like, hey, this is my plan for the 5 seasons. What do you think? What a 60, whatever it is, lay it all out. The guy can read. He likes reading. Show it to him. Like, does this make sense? What do you think? Get his input. Like, why wouldn't you if you're doing that story? Otherwise, do a different story, HBO. We've talked about this before. If you're going to adapt something, adapt it. Otherwise, just do your own story. And it stinks that this is what's kind of happening, it stinks that this has become the biggest Game of Thrones news. Right? We could have just been like, amazing book series, amazing TV show series, another, and now this is the thing that becomes so popular about it. And that's the really disappointing thing to me with all of that. What are we going to jump to? One note on wrestling. Bret the Hitman Hart was on Raw September 9th. There we go. I got a date. There we go. That's the way I'm supposed to do it. Great reaction from the crowd, of course, in Canada. Everyone's loving him. Gunther comes out. He comes out, and we don't do a lot of wrestling stuff, but this is like a fun little like extra thing, right? I'm not gonna be like, oh, see where he had that headlock? It was so good. We're not gonna do technical wrestling stuff, right? That's not gonna impress me on a podcast. But he comes out and says, oh, Bret, we all love you backstage. Everyone loves you. Everyone like grew up watching you and respecting you, everything you could do in the ring, all that stuff. He says, you know what, Bret, you're my second favorite wrestler of all time. And you know what my favorite wrestler is? Dramatic pause. Bill Goldberg. In that dramatic pause, both Bret and Gunther kind of cracked little smiles because they knew what the joke was and they knew what was coming. Because in that moment, when you first think, everyone expects Shawn Michaels. But Bret and Shawn are fine. They've been fine for years. They buried the hatchet. They both get what happened and they've moved on. But the Bill Goldberg meme is still only a few years old, to be honest. I definitely do think it's a bit of a meme with Brett because he'll do his spiel and then he'll like kind of like realize like, oh, I forgot to mention Goldberg, and then he always calls him by his full name, Bill Goldberg, instead of just Goldberg, which is what most people refer to him as. And then of course Gunther would refer to him in with his full name. It's just fantastic to see this, and it's fantastic to see this meme come to life live on Monday Night Raw, and it was fantastic. Like, you can watch the clip on Raw. They tried to like cut the angles because like Brett was trying to smirk, and then they cut to Gunther, and then he was trying not to smirk. It was excellent. I love these little things in wrestling. That's we've talked about it, right? It's soap opera for men, right? It's fine. And I love these little things that happen because it's all live. It's also all live. There's no second chances. It's fantastic, and it went well, and we love Brett, so have to mention that. All right, let's move on to sad story of the past 2 weeks. James Earl Jones passing at the age of 93, an EGOT, one of the few EGOT winners, Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and a Tony. The movies he's been in: Doctor Strangelove, Star Wars, Coming to America, Lion King, Sandlot, Field of Dreams, Lion King again, the live action one we don't talk about. Hunt for Red October. I think there was another Coming to America sequel that he was in. It was fine. Here's the thing. He played the greatest villain in the history of cinema without ever being seen and getting very little credit for it. And that was partially by his own design. He didn't like push to be like, I am Darth Vader. It's just like he let it go, right? But he's the greatest villain basically ever. It's fantastic. Mark Hamill tweeted out, rest in peace, Dad. Very sweet way to honor his friend. And co-star for many years. James Earl Jones, one of the few funerals that the Imperial March can be played. And it won't be like, out of place. It'll very much make sense. That role in Star Wars has had a huge impact on myself and on many others. Definitely shaped me, at least in part, into who I am and liking sci-fi and fantasy and that whole silly, funny world that I like and enjoy so much. I sit here in my basement talking about these things in part because of my initial love of Star Wars, and in no small part because of James Earl Jones' portrayal of Darth Vader, the greatest villain of all time in movie, on TV, and screen. So rest in peace, James Earl Jones. Let's end on a little higher note. I had to move past that one. I had to move past that topic quickly. Warhammer 40,000 Space Marines 2 came out. Let's just end on a feel-good gaming story. Open to 2 million players on launch day. That's kind of become the gold standard for a big hit on day one, getting that many people into a game. And no, this is the thing. This is why, okay, you have games that come out and there's lots of players. That's fine. But why is it a feel-good story? There's no in-game store. You can earn the cosmetics through playing, just like the old days. It become incredibly rare. They've released a quality product on launch that's working, getting good feedback. Doesn't seem that hard, AAA devs. How many times do we talk about a new game came out with all the promise in the world and it didn't work, and they had to day one patch it and you had to download 14 gigs? And here's the thing. You can earn a lot of stuff. All the future in-game real content is free. There's going to be a season pass and DLC. Or cosmetics. The actual in-game stuff you can just get by playing the game that you just bought. And you can still make a cool character without any of the extras. You're not super limited. You're not just wearing like a brown cloak and then everyone else has these cool shiny wings. No, you're still getting cool stuff. You can mix and match your armor, get really powerful. There is an in-game currency, which I know people were really afraid of at first, but you just earn it by doing stuff in the game. And then there's a little bit, again, they very wisely, you watch a stream, you link your account to your Twitch account, and you can watch streamers, and you get some more coins. Fantastic. Like, that to me is a very good type of extra. We've talked about this. I really think there's real power in partnering with streamers, with YouTubers, all that sort of stuff when it's done properly. And here's the thing. It's an okay to good game. Maybe, and most Warhammer 40,000 games are pretty decent. But it's not broken. Like, it's so weird. It's so weird that that's where the bar is at this point in gaming, where it's like a AAA game comes out not broken. Thank you. You know what I mean? It's weird. It's weird that it is, but we're gonna take the good. We're not gonna focus. We don't focus on the negative. We never do. We're gonna say a great game has come out. People are enjoying it. They have ability to unlock and do lots of cool stuff and fight cool monsters and team up with their friends. I think you can team up with your friends, or is it only first play? I'm assuming. I think there's co-op. I'm going to go on record as saying I think there's co-op. And if not, cool single player game, even better. That's gonna be it. How did I not know this? I don't know how I didn't know that. It's fine. You know what? They'll implement multiplayer at some point. Everyone always does. That's gonna be it for today, everyone. I want to say thanks so much for stopping by. Hit me with a like, subscribe, leave a comment about the stuff we talked about now, about other gaming options. It's probably going to be mobile. It's probably going to need more mobile options, and that's fine. Stay safe out there, everyone. Be good to each other, and we will talk to each other again sometime very, very soon. Bye-bye.